friend of mine used to say that he was getting ready to get ready, but there is value in talking to the FDA before you start your IND. To talk with me about why are Samira Shirwa and Aleese Hopkins. I'm James C. Taylor, and this is Insight at Biologics. And here are Samira and Aleese. And ladies, if you would just tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah, hi. My name is Aleese Hopkins. I'm a regulatory affairs manager here at Biologics Consulting Group. I've been with the company for a little over 6 years, and basically my role is to help provide regulatory advice to sponsors to help get their applications through FDA. So typically my role, we're the main point of contact for sponsors to work with multidisciplinary teams, but we also serve as regulatory contacts or U.S. agents to liaise on the sponsor's behalf with FDA. So we just basically make sure the FDA requirements are met, make sure timelines are upheld, and just help basically the sponsor get their product through the FDA in the most efficient way.
And my name is Samira Shirwa. I am also a regulatory affairs manager at Biologics Consulting, and I've been with the company for about 3 years now. And similar to Aleese, I specialize in providing regulatory advice to clients, and I've been able to support many different types of FDA submissions and participate in numerous early interactions with FDA. And working alongside our subject matter experts at Biologics Consulting, I've been able to provide regulatory insight to clients at every stage, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of my experience on early interactions with FDA.
Perfect, because that's what we're going to talk about. So it's good that you want to do that. All right, so you're going to do an IND, but you want to work with the agency before you start. What types of interactions are possible before the IND?
So there are definitely a few different types of early interactions that are possible prior to an IND submission. Some of the most common ones are interact meetings and pre-IND meetings, and those are the two that we're mainly going to be focusing on today. Both of these meetings with FDA are going to allow you the opportunity to discuss your study design. It's going to allow you the opportunity to discuss any potential regulatory pathways that could help with expediting your drug's development process and just overall discussing your development process with FDA and ensuring that everything is in alignment with FDA's regulatory requirements.
All right. So what is the purpose of this? Why do you do this? And what will the client get out of doing this?
Yeah, so there's several reasons why an early interaction is helpful and encouraged. Mainly is to just get FDA sees such a wide range of products with all the indications and they really have a good oversight over what's in the market and different things that maybe the average person might not know. And so getting FDA feedback on your program early actually helps you be able to implement that feedback early, and so you're not wasting time or resources, conducting a study or a non-clinical study, for example, that isn't going to support your product in the long run. Another, the main reason would be, of course, to just prevent clinical hold issues, because that's really, what you're trying to avoid when you submit an IND. So these interactions, the interact and the pre-IND, you can do these before the IND. So by the time you get to the IND, you should have most of your issues kind of resolved and figured out. And probably the most logical but often overlooked reason would be just because you want to start a relationship with the FDA reviewers as soon as possible. They really get a feel for your program and product early on, and when they do, it just really helps streamline reviews. It helps just communication throughout the process, and it's just a really beneficial way to start your relationship with FDA as early as possible.
And a relationship is important because you're going to be working with them through the life of the process, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Usually, reviewers switch out occasionally, but a lot of times there's the same reviewers or similar reviewers for most of the life cycle of your application. So it's just really helpful to get to know them ahead of time and get them familiar with your product ahead of time.
Okay, so this being a regulatory agency, there are procedures. There are things that you have to do. So, and that includes in having a meeting. So how do you go about requesting a meeting? And then what can you expect once one of those meetings are requested?
Exactly. So there are definitely specific processes and timelines that are involved when you're going about requesting one of these early interactions with FDA, right? So there are some similarities and differences when it comes to the interact meeting request and the pre-IND meeting request. Both of these are going to involve submission of a meeting request and briefing package to FDA. For the interact meeting, it's going to be a combined meeting request and briefing package submission. But for the pre-IND meeting, often the meeting request is going to go out first, and then that briefing package is going to go out later on, about 30 days prior to your scheduled meeting with FDA. Regarding the specific timelines, the response time for both of these meetings is going to be about 21 days. FDA is going to aim to respond and either deny or grant the meeting within those 21 days. And for the scheduling of the meetings, if they are granted, interact meetings are often scheduled within 75 days and pre-IND meetings within 60 days. And it's really important to make note of all of these different timelines and processes, because if there are any kind of delays that you run into, it can cause your meeting to be pushed back. It can cause your meeting even be canceled altogether. So it's really important that you not only are ready to submit your meeting request and briefing package, but that you meet all of FDA's timelines as best you can.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to reiterate that. That's something that we really encourage sponsors because, especially for the pre-IND, because you're submitting your request and package at different times, we really encourage sponsors to have an almost completed package before the meeting request goes in, because a lot of times after 21 days, you really might only have a week to submit after that point once you find out if your meeting's been granted, because you have to submit the package 30 days before the 60-day meeting. So it's really, there's a lot of strategy behind how you develop your pre-IND package, and it's really important because I've had meetings that had to be canceled or postponed because the package wasn't submitted in time.
And again, this goes back, at least in my mind, to the whole idea of creating a relationship. It doesn't really do your relationship a lot of good for you to not meet timelines. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. Yeah. And also, I wanted to add in terms of the process. So Samira mentioned they can grant it or deny it. There's actually a few different ways if they do grant it. There's a few different meeting types that you might have. Of course, you can request whatever you want, but they're going to ultimately look at your package and decide what they think would be most efficient. The different types are, so you can either do face-to-face, which is actually kind of rare now, especially since COVID, but they do happen. And then there's the teleconference, which is turning into more of a teleconference, video conference sort of. And then there's written response only, which is called the WRO, written response only. And that's basically just written responses to your questions.
So you can have a meeting that isn't a meeting. That's just
exactly
just words.
Exactly. It's just responses. But if you do get that, or any of the meeting types, you do have a chance to request clarification or, engage with the FDA after that if you need to get any clarifications on the questions. Like if you didn't have a conference and were able to really talk to them, there's an opportunity within 20 days of the meeting or written response only that you can actually request clarification. So it's not an end all be all at that point.
Okay. All right. So we've talked a little bit about the timing, the timelines and so forth. So what is the best timing to request either a pre-IND or interact meeting with FDA?
Sure. So obviously, we generally advise requesting these meetings, these early interactions, as soon as you can in your development process. Like Lee said earlier, that can definitely help to not only minimize costs, but ensure that you are in alignment with FDA as much as possible. Specifically for interact meetings, these are going to be requested prior to a pre-IND meeting. And that's because these are intended for novel products, and novel products specifically that may present some unique challenges earlier on in development. So when you're considering requesting an interact meeting with FDA, you have to have selected an investigational product to evaluate. And these interact meetings are often going to focus on CMC and non-clinical topics. And some of the different areas that you might be able to discuss in these meetings with FDA are talking about your toxicology studies, discussing some of your manufacturing processes, discussing some of your CMC areas that can support your first in-human study.
Yeah, and the pre-IND, so that's for the Interact. The pre-IND is a little bit different. At the pre-IND stage, should be a little bit further along in your development, and it's actually kind of submitted very close before your IND. And so what you're focused on for the pre-IND is clinical, basically getting as much feedback as you can on your protocol synopsis. So you submit a synopsis with the pre-IND package, and it gives FDA an opportunity to look at your synopsis and make sure that they agree with your first in human studies, so that once you get to the IND, you can hopefully avoid a clinical hold. And then, so along those lines, things that you might discuss for pre-IND would be obviously your synopsis, anything
Mm-hmm.
that could prevent clinical hold. Really clearly defining your endpoints for your clinical study is important, because you want to make sure that those whatever endpoints you have are going to be useful in supporting a phase 2, phase 3. And then also, pre-IND is a good time to talk about different pathways that might be available to you, like fast track or accelerated approval, or if you should go for orphan drug designation. This is a really good time to engage FDA to see if your program might be a good candidate for that.
And one of the things that we really want to emphasize and make sure
Yes.
that is made note of is that for each investigational product, you have the opportunity to have just one interact meeting and one pre-IND meeting with FDA. So it's really important to ensure that you're ready to have these interactions with FDA, and just so that you can get the most helpful feedback possible from FDA. The more information you're able to provide FDA, the more helpful the feedback is going to be. So it's really important to ensure your readiness and to ensure that you're at the right stage to request these early interactions, because you really only have one opportunity for each of them.
Okay, so I want to just touch on that again, just to make sure that I understand it. You want to do this early in the process, but you don't want to do it so early that you don't ask the important questions and you don't have them review the important information. You want to make sure that you have as much as you can for this meeting, because you've only got one shot. Am
Yeah,
I understanding that right?
that is very, very correct. You definitely don't, you
Yes.
have to be careful not to, try to have any of these meetings too early, because I mean, you want to get the most out of them. And the more information you can provide them, so the more information you have going into it, the more information and feedback you can get back from FDA. So there's a really good there's a lot of strategy involved in when exactly to submit meetings for this, so that you actually get the most helpful feedback before going to IND. But also because FDA can actually, we mentioned what happens when it's granted, but FDA can actually deny your meeting. And they could deny it if they don't feel like you're in the right spot, if they don't feel like you have enough information for them to answer your questions, if you don't provide the right information in the briefing package. So these are all things that at Biologics Consulting, like we help you with. We can help you look at your program, see where you are, see which meeting type makes the most sense for where you are, when to submit that, and what information exactly to include to get the answers you have to the questions you have.
Exactly. Our team, our subject matter experts are available to and have much experience with reviewing, all of the source information to kind of help our clients assess exactly where they are in the process and if and when they'll be ready for an early interaction with FDA, and what type of early interaction is the most suitable one to have with FDA.
Okay, is there anything else you would want to leave with a potential client before we go ahead and wrap up our conversation for today?
I mean, just reiterating, just to interact. I think reaching out to us as early as possible once you're considering, your program, as early as you can reach out to us, the better, because then we can really help you, guide you as to when exactly to reach out to us and when would be the best time to start engaging us. We could provide so you can see what an application might look like, what a meeting request might look like, and what kind of information FDA typically expects to see. And then the earlier you can get that information from us, the earlier you can add it to your own timelines, to make sure, you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's and making sure that you interact with FDA at the best time. And hopefully that leads to a smooth IND submission and allowed to proceed to your clinical trials.
Exactly. And these are free opportunities to engage with FDA early on in the development process, right? So this is one of the best ways that you can kind of start that relationship with FDA, get FDA to answer any questions you might have ahead of your IND submission to allow for the smoothest IND submission and allow for the overall smoothest development process throughout the course of your development process.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Well,
free. So
and
take
free's my favorite
advantage.
price.
Yeah, take advantage.
All righty. Well, thank you both for coming on and talking with me about this. And of course, if anybody wants the help that you are very much capable of providing, they can go ahead and contact us, and we'll go ahead and get them in contact with you. And as to how to contact us, just email us at insight@biologicsconsulting.com. That's insight@biologicsconsulting, all one word, .com. Also, we'd love it if you'd like, subscribe to, rate, and review our show. The executive producer of Insight at Biologics is Chris Crahansel. This episode was produced and edited by James C. Taylor. The technical supervisor is Jeff Weiss. The Insight at Biologics theme is by Tom Rory Parsons. I am James C. Taylor. Thank you for joining us, and please come back for more Insight at Biologics.